Hi to all of my fellow South Africans. As we go through these crazy times in our country right now, I'm going to be the first to admit, or I have to admit, actually, I feel like I've been a bit behind the times. Um, I have been aware of what's been going on, but I don't watch the news or listen to the news. I avoid social media when at times like this because I know that it's going to activate my nervous system. And when my nervous system is activated, I am no good for myself, for my family, my friends, or anyone else whom I could possibly be of support to. It doesn't help anyone when I'm in a trauma state. And that's why I wanted to really get on here today and talk to you, because I think it's really important that we recognize what's happening to us when we're in trauma and what to do about it, so that we can be in the best place to take action with a clear head, and action that is going to be supportive of ourselves and other people, if that is what we feel called to do. Okay, so I'm bringing this up now because this morning, as I say, I was a bit behind. I mean, I've been aware of what's going on, but I've kind of been following up with family that are in Gauteng and in KZN. I also had a friend. We were supposed to go and have an outside play date, because we're also in level 4 lockdown right now, of course. And we heard that Cavendish Shopping Centre had closed down, and then we heard that there was a potential threat against many of the shopping centres, including Blue Route Mall, which is very close to where we live and along the route we were going to take. So we had to reshift all our plans. And suddenly I was like, maybe I should be taking this more seriously. And it's amazing how quickly it happened. It was just bam, I was in trauma. And my domestic work has also been really, really stressed because of all the taxi violence that's been happening at the moment. And so she comes to work, and her way of processing, and I'm going to talk about this now, about our different ways of processing. Her way of processing is to talk, and she talks and talks and talks and talks, and she wants to show me the videos she's been watching and listening to. And I can hold a space for a certain amount of time, and then I know I can't. So what happened to me is I hit this point where I was like, okay, I recognize that I have gone into a trauma state, into a fight flight response, and I need to do something about it. And this is what I'd like to support you to all do. Firstly, I just want to say PTSD is very, very real in the lives of most of us, particularly in South Africa, with the past that we've had, within the collective psyche, within our ancestral lineage that we carry in our body. We carry layers of trauma. Obviously, some more than others. Obviously, the previously disadvantaged, those of color, people of color, they carry it even more so. I'm not going to go into who carries more and who carries less. I just want to say that it's all of us, most of us carry PTSD, carry trauma, and have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And what happens is that anytime something happens like what's going on in our country right now, it triggers the layers of trauma in our bodies. And if the past traumas have not been resolved, they are easily activated, and you respond to the previous moment as if it is that past moment again. So for us in Cape Town, it's not nearly like it is in KZN, for example, and in Gauteng, it's not been easy either, from what I gather. Yet there is a persistent threat of something, and that's very obvious to most people in Cape Town, in the Western Cape. But like my friend said to me today, do you think our response is being overly, are we being paranoid? And this is where we always battle, is because are you responding to what's actually going on, or are you actually re-experiencing trauma from past experiences? And most of the time it's a bit of both. Okay. And what's really important is to be able to address the trauma we're holding in our body, to not clear, but to calm that, so that we can then be with what's happening in the present from a rational perspective and take action as is necessary versus being paranoid and staying in a trauma response, which is very, very bad for your health when it's in a chronic. I mean, this is what I share in my adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue movies, videos, and posts, etc. Is that chronic being in a chronic stress response or trauma response is extremely bad for our health and for our bodies. So we're always wanting to A, recognize when we're in that place, and B, know what to do about it. Okay, so how did I realize today that I was in a trauma state or that I'd been re-triggered? I noticed that I was very irritable with my children. I didn't want to play with them. I had no capacity for play. I was too much in my head. I couldn't be in my body and in my heart. I was tense, physical tension. I had no appetite. I felt restless, and I needed to be doing something, needed to be in action. I know for me that means I've gone into a stress response. I know that I've gone into my nervous system has been activated in a way that is making me feel like I'm not safe anymore. Or my nervous system is responding as if I am not safe anymore, right? So for many of us, we don't even recognize that this is being triggered because it can happen so often. It can be such a strong default. So firstly, just to ask yourself, what have you noticed has been happening in yourself when you read posts, social media posts, or when your friends tell you things, or when you look at pictures on the news, or you see certain images, or read news stories, or hear them? What is it that happens in your body? And as you go on with your day, what happens to that feeling? Is it still there, or does it go away? How spontaneous are you able to be? How hopeful are you able to be? What is your sleeping and your eating like? What is your sense of connection to others like? These are all ways to start to tune into just how much you have been triggered by what's going on. And for some of you, it's going to be overt. You're like, well, hell yeah, of course I'm triggered. I can feel it. Like I'm afraid. I'm deeply afraid. Okay, so first point is knowing and seeing when you have been triggered, and then recognizing what you do with that. Okay, so here's the next part. So in my past, I would have pushed through. Okay, so I want to break it down first. It's quite interesting to start to recognize how you process trauma and what your specific trauma responses are. So I'm going to break it down into fight, flight, and freeze. And some of us have one that's more predominant. Some of us process it in all three ways. So the fight would be noticing that you're particularly aggressive or irritable, wanting to easy rising, easy reactive, maybe even, and I'm seeing it a lot in comments, people are saying like, we should just, we should just murder them. We should just pick up some sticks and just go get involved or whatever. Like people are feeling the fight response coming up, and there are other people who are going into the flight response, which is where you find there's a shutdown. Sorry, this is actually freeze. So you'll also find there's a bit of an overlap. For instance, there's restlessness in fight and there's restlessness in flight as well. But your flight response is going to be a need to move, a need to change. So you might find you do that by being in action or needing to fix it. And also a big part is escape. So escaping through various coping mechanisms, whether it is alcohol, cigarettes, exercise, work. These are all ways of abandoning the body because it feels too activated, and being disconnected in the head and trying to maybe think your way through it. So when we stay up here in the head, we're also going into escape and avoidance. But unfortunately, we often can't think very clearly and come up with very good plans because you're actually not sitting in the frontal cortex. When you're in that state, your primal brain has been activated, the part that reacts to potential threats. So that's the flight response. Then there's the freeze response. So for many people, that's just a feeling of being overwhelmed, powerless, numb, wanting to curl up and just kind of sleep, or read a book. This is also a bit of escape again. Can't make decisions, and that's also just because your nervous system, like I say, your frontal cortex shuts down in those situations. And I'm making it, it's not always as clear cut as what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to give you an idea to feel for what your stress response might be and to recognize that. And so when you notice, when you really think about it, notice the things you do, it can help you to see what your coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms are that come up under stress. So it is, do you go into action? Do you freeze? Do you start trying to rescue people? Do you start trying to, do you become even more of a people pleaser, for instance? So this can be one of our coping mechanisms. Do you go into the doing mode of needing to fix everything and be, or you just want to, suddenly you want to work, and you're like, your work suddenly feels really, really urgent, and you just can't stop, and it feels very important that you get it done. These are coping mechanisms that can illustrate that your body, that you're feeling stressed. In and of themselves, they're not necessarily bad. You want to be able to do work, and sometimes we help people, and sometimes we plan and fix things, but it's about doing it from a place that is not traumatized and in fear and not thinking very clearly. Okay, so if you recognize any of this in yourself, and you recognized that there is trauma present, that you have, that on some level there's been a fight, flight, or freeze response that has been activated, these are the things you can do. Firstly, I want to just remind you that the two things that are always constant, that are never ever going to go away unless you die, which obviously we obviously we're hoping that's not going to happen in this context, is that your breath is your constant, and the ground. The ground is always, 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 always beneath your feet. So when you feel like the carpet has been ripped out from underneath you, that is really the most important time to remember that the ground is there, and to literally feel the earth underneath your feet. I know it's winter and it's cold in many places right now in South Africa, but even if you have to do it with your shoes on, it's just an awareness of the stability of the ground and grounding yourself, breathing as if you're breathing up from the ground, and you can imagine a root growing down into the earth, rooting yourself. This can help you to just feel the stability of the earth, and it helps to stabilize and calm your nervous system. There's also a process that happens when you stand with bare feet on the earth of exchange of ions in the body, so that you balance out the ions in your physical body, which can become overly positive. You can have too many positive ions when you're under stress, and you're wanting to bring in some of the negative ions of the earth to reduce inflammation and the stress response. Okay, so breathing. The second one that is never going anywhere is your breath. It is your constant. However, when you're in a stress response, you're going to be breathing very lightly, and it's not going to be a full breath. So what can happen is you can end up having too much carbon dioxide accumulating in your body, and you can actually start to hyperventilate, and this increases the chances of panic attack and anxiety, etc. On the flip side of that, when you're in a relaxed state, you tend to breathe more fully and deeply and bring in more oxygen and exhale more fully the carbon dioxide. When you consciously breathe slowly and deeply, you're actually telling your brain that you are safe. So it's like the breath can then tell the body that it's safe, as opposed to the mind saying it is a threat, it's a threat, and then the body responds. So this way your breath is calming the body, and that then tells your mind, it helps your mind to then also slow down. Okay, so consciously taking in deep breaths. And this is going to be, what's actually really interesting is that it's more important to focus on the out breath than on the in breath. You want to fully exhale and then slowly breathe back in again, right down into the belly. I'm not going to give you recipes about how to do this. Like there's 4-7-8 breathing, box breathing. There's various different ways of breathing. To keep it simple, just breathe right down as if you're breathing into the base of your spine, filling your belly like a balloon, and then experiencing it deflating again as you breathe out, focusing on the exhalation. You can use yawning to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous response. So fight, flight, freeze is the sympathetic nervous response. Parasympathetic is your rest and digest. Yawning, it stimulates the vagus nerve, which helps to calm the whole body. And so what you actually do is you purposefully yawn. So you obviously can't yawn on cue. You can actually Google someone yawning, a video of someone yawning. That might help you. But what you will find is that if you start yawning, even talking about it now, I can feel like there's one coming. But open your mouth and really wide and yawn, and do that as many times as you can, and you might find you'll actually start to yawn. And you want to do it until you start getting teary, and you actually have because your eyes start to water, and that helps to actually stimulate the vagus nerve and the rest digest response. The other one is there's 2 qigong things I wanted to show you, which I found are extremely useful. So the one is tremoring or shaking. It's not actually tremoring. Tremoring is a bit different. Shaking, where you release the stress that you've built up in your body, and because when we're in a fight, flight, freeze response, you ideally want to go through with the flight, or you want to complete the fight. You don't want to be in freeze, because then you're not processing the nervous energy and you haven't completed the stress cycle, and that's when it starts to build up, and it impacts your health and your well-being, your emotional well-being as well. So the shaking helps to process the energy and to complete the stress cycle in a way, because oftentimes, even though we want to fight, we don't. We just get irritable and ratty, and we don't quite exactly flight either. We don't run. We kind of just do it in the closest forms we can find in our everyday living. Okay, so shaking. You stand with your feet, the balls of your feet connected to the earth, and you're just going to start keeping your body loose and just shake up and down on the balls of your feet, and also relax your head, but be careful with your neck, and just start to shake your body like this. And you're going to want to do this for as long as you feel that you can. Just shaking, shaking. And I sometimes also just shake a little bit like this. And you might find afterwards that you feel a little bit tingly in your body. This is because the energy is moving around more in your body, and it's a good thing. So don't be shocked by that. But what you will feel is that your body almost feels heavier, like you're more solidly in your body. And there's a sense of stillness that happens when you finish, and just becoming more centered. It's a really powerful process for releasing stress and trauma. The other one is you can't really see my hands, but you hold your hands down in front of you like this, and as you breathe in, you lift your hand above your head. Let me do this. Okay, so you're going to breathe in and then out. Bringing your hand back down to the bottom. And in and out. And you're actually grounding your breath here. I like to imagine I'm breathing in calm and relaxation, and I'm grounding it into the earth, rooting myself down into the earth. You do that as many times as you feel that you need to. Okay, so those are a few ways that you can actively calm your nervous system when you are in stress and in trauma, and from that place, it will help you to make decisions and take action that is more rational. It's not too based in fear, And possibly, sometimes afterwards we look back and we think, I can't believe I made that decision. So you wanting to just stay clear-headed. Okay. And I'm just going to quickly switch into my other role, because I'm not just I'm a holistic psychologist. I'm not just a psychologist. From that perspective, from a head perspective, I also work with the spiritual, so body, mind, and spirit. And I just want to share a perspective on this, which I'm hoping is going to support you as well. We're in a time of great change and transformation. So energetically, there's lots and lots of people who believe that at this point we're actually going through a death. Okay, and it's unfortunately it is playing out an actual physical death of many people, but there's also a death of the old. It's the death of the old ways, the old systems, the old ways we're being governed. We're seeing corruption coming to the fore. We're seeing the economy is shaky. In many ways, the old is falling away to make place for the new. And unfortunately, transformation is not often smooth. It's often we need chaos to throw all the cards up in the air so they fall differently when they come back down again and make a different picture. We're going through a time that feels really, really bad. We want to judge it as bad, and I can totally get it. Why? I mean, yes, face value, when we look at what's going on, it's scary, it doesn't look good. But can you possibly hold place for the perspective that maybe within all of this something new is coming through, and that it's necessary. And I just don't want to in any way invalidate the grief and loss that people have experienced in this time. It's very real. I feel it in my core many days, which is why I often avoid the news. And so I'm certainly not invalidating the truth and the reality of that. But at the same time, just please hold space for the possibility that we're in that pupa where the caterpillar breaks down into it, actually literally all its cells come apart and come back together again as the butterfly. We're having to break down to come back together again. And there's opportunities that can come from this for massive change and transformation. So I'm just going to leave that with you. I don't know where that sits with everyone, but go gently, please. Just hold out hope. Hope is so, so very important at times like this. Please reach out for support if you're battling. So I've given you some things here, but it might not. If you find it's not enough, then please, please, please reach out for support from someone who is qualified to give you the kind of support that can hold you during these times. They are very, very triggering times, okay, and it's okay to not be doing okay. In fact, we're actually being stirred up to feel at the moment. That's part of what's going on as well. We've lived for way too long disconnected and up in our head. It's time to come into our bodies and feel, and that's difficult. Okay, it's not something we're used to, most of us. Right, I'm going to leave it there. My heart is with you all. And no matter even if you're in other parts of the world and you're listening to this, I know it's going to touch layers for everyone, because this is just what's happening in South Africa is just a part of, it's a microcosm of the macrocosm that's happening everywhere. The shift, the transformation, the chaos, the rebirthing. All right. Take care, everyone.